we all learn in different ways. I mean, obviously, given that you're listening to this podcast, you probably do some of your learning via audio, but there are different mediums that work better for different kinds of learning, and we learn in different ways along the process of our learning journey. Sometimes in the beginning, you need large amounts of information that's very detailed. And for that sort of thing, sometimes reading a book, watching YouTube videos, taking an online course, those kinds of things can be super helpful. Later on, there are more advanced online courses, there are in-person courses, there are still books. I mean, different media works at different levels, but depending on where we are in our journey, what we're trying to learn, and what our own learning preferences are, there are a variety of options out there. One of the options that has been around for a long time, but seems to be growing at a rapid pace, especially in the photography industry right now, is group coaching. It feels like a new group coaching offer in my Instagram feed or in my inbox on a regular basis. And they're expensive enough and time consuming enough and also really enticing enough that I have been kind of watching them with a lot of curiosity. I wanted to talk about this, but I'm not the expert. I've actually never participated in a group coaching program inside the photography space. I have done a group coaching program as an entrepreneur / educator, but that is a little bit different. And I figure, and I'm not a coach. I don't do group coaching work. I have mentored people one-on-one, and I've done some small group classes, but I feel like that's different than an ongoing engagement that is often the marker of a coaching program. So I called up my friend Elena Blair, who has one of, as far as I know, the original group coaching programs for photographers. And not only do I know Elena personally and know that she puts her heart and soul into the teaching and education work that she does, but I also know many of the graduates of her programs who speak very highly of the sort of structure and support that they have gotten inside those programs. So I figured she would be a great person to go into a little more detail for us about what group coaching is, what you can expect, and how to tell the difference between a coaching program that does what it says it's going to do, which is usually a pretty transformational outcome, versus one where you spend a lot of time, a lot of money, and feel kind of disappointed at the end. So I'm going to cue the music and introduce Elena.
Welcome to This Can't Be That Hard. My name is Anami Tonkin, and I help photographers run profitable, sustainable businesses that they love. Each week on the podcast, I cover simple, actionable strategies and systems that photographers at every level of experience can use to earn more money in a more sustainable way. Running a photography business doesn't have to be that hard. You can do it, and I can show you how.
Elena Blair, it is so exciting to welcome you back to the podcast today. Did you know that you were my very first ever guest on This Can't Be That Hard?
What?
You were.
I did not know that.
I know. Like 200 plus episodes ago.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like I see you everywhere in the podcast world, so that it just seems kind of silly. Was it because you were doing solo episodes? Is that what was going on?
I was doing solo episodes, but I think you were like episode 9. I mean, it was pretty early on in the process. I was like, I think I'm going to start doing interviews. Who should I call? And you were my number one call.
Oh my gosh, I'm so honored. That's awesome.
No, please. And I'm excited and also a little embarrassed that it has taken us this long to bring you back. So super excited to welcome you back and very ready to dive into this juicy topic. I feel like you are the number one person to talk about group coaching. You've been at it for a while. You are so well respected in this space. And I just feel like group coaching is one of those things that I am seeing more and more of, like these offers everywhere. And I know that it's a very attractive idea for a lot of people who are looking for some community and some support and some direction and some feedback and all those things. But I think it's important for us to have just a really honest conversation about the fact that, it's kind of the Wild West when it comes to group coaching. And so I think that having some really good ideas about what to look for, what one should expect, all that sort of stuff is going to be really helpful to a lot of people. So I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. I definitely agree with you that it's kind of cropping up a lot lately. And I've been a student in a couple of really big group coaching programs as well. So I feel like I have both sides, and that's kind of, I think that helps a little bit.
Yeah.
It helps in explaining it for sure.
Definitely. Well, before we dive into that, if anyone has been living under a rock and doesn't know who Elena S Blair is, why don't you give a brief introduction of yourself and who you are and what you do?
Oh my gosh. That is the very nice thing to say. I feel like you and I were just talking earlier that we're both in our 13th year of business. And, in our industry, that's kind of a long time, because unfortunately there's a lot of burnout, which is why you and I have come on the scene to help with the business side of things so that people don't burn out. But I am a lifestyle, family, and newborn photographer. I also have a boutique school photography segment of my business, and I teach about boutique school photography. I still photograph. I'm still very much in the game. I still photograph. Well, last year I went down to 80, and I'm trying to get down to 50 families this year. And that's by total intention. I feel like I'm going into the more consultant realm of our industry. And last year I was like, why am I this busy still, even though I brought it down? But before last year, I was averaging about 100 sessions a year for the past 8 years. So definitely still very much a photographer. And it's hard for me to let that go because I do love it so much.
Yeah,
I do love it so much. But I also have an online education platform. So I have some classes about family and newborn photography. And my most popular class is Schooled, which is helping photographers implement boutique school photography. And then in 2020, I launched my Mastermind, which is the Elena S Blair Mastermind. And I think that I would say, I feel like I've fallen into my life's work, like it feels the most on purpose for me that I've ever felt in anything that I've ever done, because it really helps me to integrate other things that are important to me, like mindfulness and holistic living and, paying attention to this one important life that we have and really helping people integrate that into their business and their goals and their systems. So it's been a fun ride for sure.
I love that. Good.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the idea of group coaching. And let's start just with kind of a basic, I don't know, you said having been on both sides of it, I have been part of some group coaching, but I have never done group coaching. So why don't you give us the lay of the land in terms of what group coaching is when it comes to the photography space?
Sure. So, well, I call mine a mastermind. And I think that there are lots of different categories, I guess you could say, in group coaching. I don't know if that's the right word. Maybe that wasn't the right word. Like lots of different descriptions that people use. I think that when we first came into this industry 13 years ago, there were a lot of in-person workshops. That was kind of the way that people were educating photographers. And then, of course, it came in on the online space. And so you had the option to take online workshops. And then, of course, there were conferences. For entrepreneurs in general, so I'm going to just go a little bit higher level for a minute to explain why I came up with the term mastermind for mine and how I discovered this. I feel like the concept of a mastermind for entrepreneurs, not necessarily photographers, but other business owners, small business owners, it came on the scene really on the internet because those of us that are entrepreneurs are really working alone. We are, creating these businesses from our dining room tables, which is literally where I am right now, and sort of building the plane as we fly. We don't really have a rule book. We don't really know, what you should do next or what is the right thing for taxes. What's the right thing for pricing? There's so many things to think about. And entrepreneurs got hip to the idea that, while there should always be an expert in a group, really every single human has something to bring to any group environment. We all have life experiences that make us the business owner that we are. Like you and I, for example, are nurses by trade, right? That's what we did before. And I know for a fact that Like there are times that I think back to like my first preceptor and things that he said to me, and I literally am using that in my photography business. Like it has nothing to do with photography, but the inspiration and the grit and the motivation that all came from that 10 years that I was a nurse. And that's the case for everybody. We all bring that to the table. So when you form a mastermind, it's a carefully curated, or group coaching program. It's a carefully curated group of individuals that all want to go up. It doesn't really matter, in my opinion, it doesn't really matter where you are. It just matters that you want to expand, that you are there to become a higher version of self. And when it's industry specific, like for our business, for photography, then we are, the leader, like myself, for example, is bringing in all of the things that I know that have worked for me, all of the systems that I have that have worked for me. But then there's room for every single person to tailor that to their own life experiences and their own lifestyle and the area of the world that they live in. I mean, I don't call mine, six figure something, which a lot of people do, or, let's get you to multiple six figures or whatever, because some people don't want to get to six figures.
Right.
For a lot of my members are like, hey, I've got another job that I love. I don't want to leave that behind. Making $30,000 a year would be a huge win, where there are some who want to make 100 or more, whatever, of course. But that's the point, is that you can really take it and tailor it to what you actually need. And I think that, sorry, I'm talking a lot about it, but I think the real magic, this happened when I was a student, this happens in every single group that I have, is that you do see that there's this little like concoction. It's like 30 people meeting every week, sprinkling their own ingredients into the recipe, and every person grows because of it.
Mm-hmm.
In so many ways that they didn't anticipate. Obviously, we're looking at numbers. We want profitability. You want more clients. You want sustainability. Yes, those things are important. But other ways too, like maybe you're growing spiritually, or maybe you're seeing things from a different perspective, or maybe you decided to take on a healthier lifestyle, or all these other things that actually really matter in building a long-term business. You got to build it from the inside out. So it's just really kind of awesome to see that happen.
That's amazing.
And to be part of it.
Well, and I think that one of the big differences to me between a group coaching experience versus hiring a coach and doing one-on-one coaching, which can also be valuable, but is a totally different thing, is the component of that. I feel like community is such an overused word, but like it is that community, and it's the sort of multiple perspectives that you're getting. And to your point, people come with all of their who they are, what they've experienced, and they bring that to a group. And so no two groups can ever be the same because of that dynamic. And I feel like that feedback is, I love that you said, carefully curated group, because in a group that's just kind of like, hey, anybody who wants to come in, you end up with it can happen. There can magically be that sort of group chemistry. But when somebody has really taken their own time and expertise to try to build a more intentional dynamic, still there's going to be variables that you don't account for, but it really can lead to a pretty extraordinary result.
Absolutely. And, I think that term and carefully curated can feel intimidating. It's definitely not a popularity contest. It's not that at all, but it is, there's something about when I take the time, when I take a lot of time. I have not figured out how to make that streamlined. I interview everybody, and I feel like it's totally worth it. But when you take that time, you're able to really, think about like what personality matches are going to go together, what type of person's really going to work well in this group. And the other part of it that I will say that's, the elephant in the room is that you are considering people who are willing to bet on themselves. Mm-hmm. With money. I'm going to straight up say it. When you're paying for something, you are way more invested. Mm-hmm. You're way more motivated. Free groups are great, but you didn't put any money into it. You just show up when you feel like it, and so you've got 30 people who have invested a significant amount of money into this, specific time period, and they want to see results. And so they're going to put the effort in to help out with that to happen for themselves, but also for everyone else. And that, for me, the first one that I was a student in, it was a huge financial investment. It felt super scary, but man, I showed up in a way for myself that I have never shown up before. And I know for a fact, like after that year, I was a different human. It changed every facet of my life. So I'm a huge believer
Yeah.
in every part of it.
Yeah. It is. There's that like skin in the game piece to
Mm-hmm.
anything that you're investing in. I was reading an article about the way that people talk about products when they have spent large amounts of money on them, and how it's like you are wired to it is a demonstration of belief, not only in what it is that you're buying, but in how it will transform you. And I feel like that belief in something like a coaching program, when you're putting that money and effort toward your business and your sort of business growth, it's almost, I don't want to say it's a foregone conclusion, but it really sets you up in a way that almost no kind of DIY YouTubing how to run a business
Mm-hmm.
can. I feel like the results come. And that's, again, that's sort of part of that magic chemistry of somebody at the, who is organizing and kind of creating that space, and then the way that it fills up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a little magic to it, right? It's like, you have to believe in
Mm-hmm.
something. And if you have gone through all of the stages of a group coaching program application, usually there's an interview process, and then you choose to invest. It's like you believe it's going to work. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's a huge part of, okay, well, I believe it's going to work. I'm going to put in the effort to make it work, and I'm going to do the things that this person is suggesting and make it happen. And yeah, there's all kinds of parts that really just make it so effective.
Yeah. Okay, so that said, I have heard some horror stories out in the world
Mhm.
about, oh, I was looking for a coach and I found somebody who had a program that was opening, and I decided to invest in it. It was a ton of money and it was a total waste, or like it was a shit show. Like it wasn't organized, they weren't showing up, or like I don't know, they just basically didn't get what they thought they were paying for. And I
Mhm.
always cringe when I hear stories like that, because I know that, that's kind of a one bad apple spoils the bunch situation. And there are really good programs out there. But what have you found? Like, what are the red flags to look for? What are the green flags to look for? Like, how do you know when a coaching program or a specific coach is the right one for you? How do you do that research?
It's a really good question. I do think that it's on you, the student, to do your due diligence and make sure that this person that you're hiring for a really important job, this is somebody who's going to be an integral part of your journey. You want to make sure that it's the right person for you. So, yeah, there's a lot of group coaching programs out there. One of the first and most important things I think that you should pay attention to is how they are speaking to people online and anywhere that you see them speaking to people. So one of the red flags that you can look for is I personally feel like it's a red flag when a coach tears someone down in order to bring them up. So if you hear someone saying, here's the 5 mistakes you're making, here are the things you're doing wrong, here's why all businesses fail, just, et cetera, et cetera. They're starting with, you are going to fail unless you come and work with me.
Right.
I think that is a really good sign of how they're going to work with you as a coach. And I personally don't think that that is a very positive group coaching environment. You don't want to be torn down to be brought back up.
Mm-hmm.
So really pay attention to their language. Instead, look for encouraging language, language that is bringing people up, that is lifting others up in the industry, that is about inclusive language is really important to look out for. So that's one of the first things. Like, are they kind? Do
Mm-hmm.
they lift people up? And you'll see it now. Watch now after you listen to this. Like, pay attention. There's so many people that love to bring their followers down so that they can lift them back up. And I feel like that's a really big red flag. So that'll be my first one. My second one is make sure that they've been where you want to be, or that they maybe they're not, some coaches aren't really working anymore in their industry. And I understand that. That totally makes sense. Like, they've got to the point where they're just consulting. But in the photography industry, particularly since that's what this audience is, like, does this photographer have the history and the experience to back what they're trying to teach you? So if they're telling you they're going to get you to a certain level of monetary success, or help you get published. There's all kinds of different things that people guarantee as coaches. Like, make sure they've actually done that. Mm-hmm. And you can straight up ask them or just look back at their history. But there is room for everybody. And I'm sure we all have something to teach. But I will see pretty fresh photographers opening up coaching programs. And I wonder if they are going to be able to give results to their students, because I wonder if they actually have the experience to back what they're teaching. So just look into it. That's you as a student. It's not that hard to find out. Like, you can figure that out pretty quick. And then the next thing, read the reviews. Like, don't trust the coach.
Right.
I mean, you can, and I'll never forget my first mastermind round. I was like, girls, it was all women that time. Thank you for trusting me. I think this is going to work. I straight was honest with him. I was like, I think this is going to work. I have 10 years of teaching behind me, of doing other things in smaller bite-sized pieces, and I've given results in that way. I've never done it like this. I think it's going to work. Thank you for trusting me. And I still feel, there was 22 of them. They know who they are. I feel completely indebted to them because they trust me. And it worked. Spoiler alert, it worked. But after the first round, I have lots of reviews. So make sure that you look at the reviews. Most coaches will be able to compile lots of reviews. And when I have somebody, when I'm interviewing them and they're on the fence, I'll say, send a direct message to, like, here's a handful of my past students. Maybe they'll answer, maybe they won't. They're doing this out of the kindness of their heart, but ask someone, because you really need to make sure, again, that this is a positive, effective program if you're going to invest in it. So those would be the three main things that I would say that you should look out for.
Yeah. I feel like, and I know that there's variety in this, but I think a lot of entrepreneurs are problem solvers, and they sort of look at, and I think especially as artists, we look at people and we assume the best. So it's kind of like you go to tour a house and all the other people at the open house are like, this place is a dump. It looks terrible. And you're like, I see the potential. Like, I feel like that is sort of the entrepreneurial spirit. And that is, I think, a lovely personality component. I say that very much being something that's also part of my personality. But it can also be tricky. It can be a problem if, for instance, you go buy the house that is falling apart and then you're like, oh, wow, this is worth the amount that is going to be required to make this place work is more than it's worth. Or, I have a problem and I have found a coaching program that has a spot available. And even though maybe there are some red flags or whatever, I think that this is going to work because, this one thing this person said, or this one review that was on their website that they had full control over, or whatever, looks really positive. So I'm going to dive in head first. And I do think that I have learned, sadly, the hard way over time, that especially when it comes to a big investment, or even just a big investment of time, but certainly a big investment of money, you really do want to, like, pause, take that, do the thing where you're like, you sleep on it for a day or two. And, once that initial excitement that you found a solution or a possible solution wears off, like, give it some breathing room and see how you feel. And the fact of the matter is, those coaches and programs that have built trust over time, they're not going anywhere. This is not like deadlines are great. And I talk about that all the time. Like, it's really important to give people a reason to purchase, but anybody who is using that in a toxic way you should run the other direction.
It's such a good point. Yeah. And even though there's deadlines, like for mine, it only opens twice a year. It's like, you can apply the next time. Yeah. If it doesn't work for you this time, you can apply the next time. And you're absolutely right. You have to, it's an investment for a reason. So you definitely want to make sure that you're ready to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to the positive side of things, and let's talk a little bit about what you see as the benefits of a group coaching program. I know that you pointed out that, like, different coaches promise different results, but as someone, who is entering into a coaching program, do you feel like that person is better off if they have, like, a very specific plan, like, by the end of this, I want to achieve XYZ, or is it just kind of a show up and see what happens scenario?
I mean, I can speak to mine, but I think in general, when you're vetting this, you're like, okay, I need a coach. I need help. I want to fast track my business or my artistry or whatever. There's creative group coaching programs too that are not about business, that are about helping you, hone in on your artistic vision and style. You want to make sure that you have a clear idea of what your goals are for, usually they're long term, so for the next 6 months, let's say, and then I would cross check that into, okay, does this program promise to help me get to those goals, meet those goals? I do think that a good coach will do some sort of onboarding process. I mean, everyone's is different. Mine, they get a 1 hour call, just me and them, where we do go over portfolio and website and pricing and all of the things. And then we make a plan that's specific for them so that they can kind of run parallel with the program, like the weekly meetings, knowing like, okay, I have to take this part of this topic and implement it in my business because that's what I'm working on, since every single person will be different. So I guess I would say that you want to make sure that the program is, aligned with the goals that you have set for yourself, and then make sure that the coach is going to help you to meet those goals. I think a good coach will do that. I think most of us do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you turn people down for your membership?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is, I wouldn't call it a membership necessarily. It is, open applications.
That was my mistake. Yeah. I say the word membership a lot. I meant Mastermind. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know. It's fine. Memberships are great too, though, but mine is pretty, specific. So yeah, I absolutely do. We usually have about 100 apply for the 30 spots. Okay. And I usually interview 60. It's been the number has been like rain. It's right as rain. I don't know what that's about. And I have got really good at, knowing what questions to ask to really kind of weed out the ones that are not ready or are just excited about this opportunity, but really they're not at a place yet to invest financially, or it's really an investment of your time. Your time is your most valuable currency. And for a lot of people, once a week for 5 months is something they can't do. So I'm able to really weed those ones out with the questions. And then I have specific questions that really help me to know if I am in a heart connection with that person. I know how cheesy that sounds, but I really need to know that they are going to be there for the personal development mindset stuff that I do, because I really think I believe that our businesses are super personal. And I think that's a big component of my mastermind. So I want to make sure that they're hitting that mark. And then in the interview is when I really do the last vetting process. And usually when I bring people to interview, I'm pretty confident that they would be a great fit. And the 50-50 is about finances. Usually it's about whether they want to pay it or not.
So beyond finances and time, do you feel like if the people listening at home right now are kind of thinking oh, a group coaching scenario sounds amazing, is there a way beyond those two things for them to say, maybe this is not the right time? Is there someone who group coaching is not for, or is not for right now? Or is it really just a matter of finding the right coach?
It's a matter of, I think 100% of us could benefit from a coach at any given time. Here's when I think it's not a great time. And I think that I'm answering your question correctly, but maybe not. So there are those students, we've all had them, who are serial students. They never take what they're learning and implement it. I always tell mine at the end, I'm take a break from podcasts and YouTube, and don't get another coach for at least 3 months, if not 6. And I'm not saying that because I think I'm amazing and that I think I'm the best coach. I think they will be ready for another one in 6 months. But you have to take the time to implement what you learn, or else you are never going to actually see the benefit. I can be totally guilty of that as a junkie of personal development as well, where I'm one book after another, one podcast after another. And I realized, wait, I'm just listening to all these great tips and doing 0 of them. I haven't tried one of these great things that I've learned. And I have to take, a couple months off of the books that I'm listening to or whatever. So that would be the person that I would say shouldn't do it. If you're just on the heels of having been a member of another group coaching program or taken a really big class, give yourself some time to implement that. Go actually try it. And that's the problem for a lot of you out there, and a lot of us out there, is that we can tell you exactly what to do. And truth is, if you do it, it'll work.
Mm-hmm.
But most people don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So take the time to actually implement what you're learning first. And then you can say, okay, all right, I implemented all that stuff. I saw some growth. Now I'm ready to learn a little more about, like, for you, like if they did, say they just took one of my family classes and now they have a great posing system and a great system for a family photo session and they need pricing help. Now it's time to take your pricing class because they're ready for that. But maybe if they took them at the same time, they wouldn't have implemented them both.
Yeah.
So that would be the point, I would say, is make sure that you're actually pausing and doing the things that you're learning.
Yeah, like I will raise my hand, and I think everyone can, like at some point or another, we are part of that. I call it passive action, like where you're like,
100%.
oh, I am working hard by listening to podcasts and, reading books. That's all great. But until you actually integrate that knowledge into your business or your workflow or your whatever, that's just something that you know about now. So putting that knowledge into action is really the final key. And I do feel absolutely that for someone who, even if somebody feels like they have a track record of that passive action and they've been guilty of that, that's not like who you are. You can choose to change that. And if you go into a coaching program explicitly saying like, this is something I've been guilty of in the past, and in part of what I'm doing by putting my time and money and energy toward this is double committing to myself that this time is going to be different.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that we can also do ourselves a disservice by judging our actions or our past actions like, oh, I've bought all these online courses and I've never done anything with them. Well, that doesn't mean that has to be the case next time.
Exactly.
So
no, we are, I always say that we are always growing until we die. That's the day I die, is when I'm like stagnant.
Yeah.
And you can change any habit and make a plan to actually implement the things that you're learning. Yeah. And there's also a phase in any journey where you need to just be absorbing. Yes. You're taking it all in. So just take inventory. Okay, is it time to actually, put some of this to action? And then again, you actually like bump up against like roadblocks. It's almost like with I'll use a camera gear example. You get that first camera and it's a little bit basic and you use the heck out of it until you're like, okay, I do need something better now. This isn't working for me anymore. And then you get the better camera. It's the same with knowledge. It's the same with business. You can max it out.
Absolutely. That's great. I totally talk about that too, where don't buy a new camera until you know exactly why your current camera isn't serving you. And I think I've never thought about it from the knowledge sphere, but that's absolutely true as well. So good. Elena, tell everybody where they can connect with you and find out more about your group coaching program, your mastermind.
So I have a education website, which is ElenaSBlair.com. So S as in Sam. And there's a tab that says the Elena S Blair Mastermind up there. So you can find it there. And the blog has a ton of free resources as well. And then you can always find me on Instagram, Elena S Blair _photography. Those are the two places I spend the most time. And the Mastermind opens up applications twice a year. So you can get on the wait list if you hop over there. And it depends on, I don't know when this is airing, but if it's not accepting, just get on the wait list. But
great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time to come chat. It's always lovely to see your face. And we will be sure to not wait 200 more episodes before you come back and join me again.
Yeah, I love it that this has taken off so much. So anytime you want to have me, I'm happy to be here.
Thanks so much. All right. Have a great day.
All right. You too. Take care.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of This Can't Be That Hard. I'll be back same time, same place next week. In the meantime, you can find more information about this episode, along with all the relevant links, notes, and downloads at thiscan'tbethathard.com/learn. If you like the podcast, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Even better, share the love by leaving a review in iTunes. And as always, thanks so much for joining me. I hope you have a fantastic week.